Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are live here on this Tuesday, November the 21st, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. I'm your host, Chris Phillips of the Daily Crow of the Spurs Up Show, as always, coming to you live. I see in the chat Xavier M., Lucas Green, Bruce, Austin, Sir Big Spurs, John Edward, Madison Duncan, Ethan K., Travi. Appreciate you all tuning in. Also, those who are in the Big Cock Club Discord, head over to the TDC Questions channel, the TDC Questions channel, to be sure your questions are answered there. Guys, we have got truly a jam-packed show. Lots to get into, of course, guys, with this being sort of a different week with Thanksgiving. No TDC on Thursday or Friday. We're cramming all the content in. Preview content, breakdowns, predictions in the next 2 days for not just South Carolina Clemson, but the entire SEC as well. We'll talk position unit comparison between the Gamecocks and Tigers today. Also, our weekly drive around the SEC will be happening today. Of course, there's also big news. Juice Wells goes on record on social media and clears the air about his status, his future plans, and while he'll be returning to South Carolina in 2024. And of course, guys, we kick off today's show with our good friend, JC Shurburtt of the Big Spur, who joins us every single Tuesday to talk about an array of topics, including some of the ones that I just mentioned. But again, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. Appreciate you all this Tuesday here on this Tuesday of Rivalry Week. It's an exciting week. I want to say thank you, by the way. Shout out my guy, Stingray Steve, for having me on his radio show, Tide 100.9, which airs in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I actually joined him as his co-host on the show the previous 2 days, both yesterday and this morning. So again, I want to shout him out directly, say thank you to Stingray Steve. Guys, let me also remind you, no TDC Thursday or Friday because of Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving festivities. But with that being said, guys, we have got so much content planned. I mean, content bleeding out the eyeballs in regards to guest interviews, in regards to just content in general, graphics, what have you, things to get you ready for kickoff on Saturday. Going to be a ton of fun, guys. And again, I appreciate each and every single one of you, your love, your support. Nothing we do here is possible without you. Guys, on that note, be sure if you're on YouTube, you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you get notifications when we go live, when we drop new video content as well. Also, guys, head over to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and check us out. Hit the subscribe button at the Spurs Up Show on each of those respective platforms. We drop daily podcasts on those platforms. And of course, guys, on social media, be sure to follow us. The content always is bleeding out of the eyeballs on social media. Guys, the rivalry banter, the rivalry trash talk is at an all-time high. Of course, social media and the internet is something, the gift that never stops giving. I've seen my face on a lot of different memes, a lot of different GIFs, a lot of different videos, what have you. It's been a ton of fun. It's been a ton of fun, truly, and it's one of those things that makes college football so special. The back and forth, the banter, the hatred, the rivalries, what have you. It's a ton of fun, no doubt. So again, guys, thank you all so much. We've got a ton to discuss and a ton to get into. So with that being said, let's go ahead and roll. Our good friend joins us every single Tuesday, JC Shurburtt of the Big Spur. He took the time to talk all things Juice Wells' return, the Kentucky win, the South Carolina Clemson series, Saturday's game, all that good stuff. So guys, sit back, relax, and enjoy this conversation with JC Shurburtt of the Big Spur. All right, guys, he joins us every single Tuesday to talk all things Gamecocks, football, everything in between. It's been an eventful last 24, 48, or even 72 hours in Gamecock Nation. We bring on, as always, our good friend JC Shurburtt of the Big Spur to help us break it down. JC, what's going on, my friend? Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. Happy Rivalry Week, and appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, that's no problem. Same to you and yours, Chris, and all the TSUS Diddley Crow listeners out there. You're all Gamecock family, and certainly wish all of the Gamecock family a tremendous Thanksgiving. It is Rivalry Week. It's the biggest weekend of the year is what I always have called it since I was in college, and it still is. It's a huge game, obviously, for a number of reasons. This season, in particularly, glad the Gamecocks have one more home game to get out there and perform under the lights at Williams-Brice.
And JC, it's funny this week. It's hard not to just completely flip the page and turn the attention to Saturday. But I want to talk about what happened against Kentucky. But before I do that, some massive news that dropped out of nowhere last night as Juice Wells goes on X, goes on his social media and announces he will be returning for the 2024 season. There was a lot of speculation. What are Juice Wells' plans? Is he getting ready for the NFL draft? Could he consider coming back? He said, you know what, JC, I want to clear the air. I'm coming back next year. Your immediate reaction to that and what it means for Gamecocks football, what type of boost that is going into year 4 of the Shane Beamer era.
He's an elite player, Chris. I mean, thank goodness Xavier Legette became an elite player this year. And honestly, you saw it in that first drive against Georgia, just when you put those two on the field with each other, what kind of an offense this could have been, given just, Spencer syncing up with both of those guys, and they sort of bring different skill sets to the table. But Juice is an elite player. I mean, maybe one of the top receivers in the SEC coming into this season. Maybe you had Malachi Neighbors ahead of him. I don't know. I don't know who else you could make that kind of argument for. Unfortunately, you look at this year's draft, Chris, and it's very deep at receiver. I mean, you've got a lot. Xavier's climbing up the boards. And right now, probably if Juice went, he would go before Juice. So Juice looking about a 5th to 7th round pick. Best. I think that, when you kind of consider that he could come back and play his way into the 1st or 2nd round, that's a significant bunch of coin. Now, I'll say this. If Juice went to the pros and got drafted late, I have no doubt he would make a roster if healthy. And if not, he'd be on IR. He's too good. I mean, he is an NFL guy. But coming back is betting on yourself, which I always appreciate and admire in people. I always think that the people that bet on themselves end up being successful in life, no matter what kind of failures they may or roadblocks they may have. And so he's betting on himself to come back and be elite and play his way into the 1st or 2nd round. I think, when you look at it, Lenore Sellers is probably pretty happy, assuming he is the guy, which I believe he will be, because you've got a ready-made all SEC type talent out there to throw the ball to next season if you're the young quarterback. So it's exciting to think about, Juice and Lenoris on the field at the same time. You hope an improved offensive line as well. Some of the younger players like Nick Harbor taking another step forward, getting better at running back in the portal or otherwise, tight end as well. So, it looks against the schedule they're going to face next year. I mean, you're going to need all the weapons you can get. And so it's a good piece of news for South Carolina without a doubt.
JC, moving into the game that took place on Saturday night, Gamecocks keep their bowl hopes alive, obviously, taking down Kentucky. First time, JC, back-to-back wins against the Wildcats since 2012 to 2013. That's significant. That's a big deal when you talk about turning the tide and flipping that series. And now Shane Beamer with 2 wins in a row against Kentucky and Mark Stoops, a 2-1 record. You look back at this game, though, JC, it was the slugfest that I guess we were all expecting, maybe? No, I mean, I was stunned by the final. I thought that would be the halftime score more than anything. Let's start with the defense, though, because we've picked on them a lot this year, and they've been bad. They've deserved it, but they also deserve the praise after that performance, a night in which, for whatever reason, the offense was sputtering. It was just that type of game. It was just that slugfest game, JC. Both teams trading blows, both defenses making big plays. South Carolina had 1 or 2 more big plays in them, especially with the turnovers. You had the fantastic interception from Nick Eamon-Wari, the great plays by Jordan Strawn up front, Tonka Hemingway. What impressed you the most about the Gamecocks' defensive performance on Saturday night?
Yeah, it's the 2nd straight season, if you remember that game in Lexington last year, and I was there, where South Carolina's D-line really got the best of Kentucky up front. We can't say that's happened a ton this year. Jordan Strawn had his best game. Tonka Hemingway active and making plays. Boogie Huntley out there doing things. TJ Sanders, the linebackers played well. They limited. I mean, Kentucky didn't really feed Ray Davis that much. They fed him 12 times. Stoops alluded to something's up there because Stoops kind of alluded to it in the in the whatever in the post game, but they limited him and his carries. Devin Leary was probably not going to beat Carolina with his arm, and he didn't. But I always call Kentucky this, and I got it from my friend Josh Pate. Kentucky is a spider web team. Like, you don't want to get caught in their web, and Carolina did, quite frankly. You get off to the hot start, and then they plug away and plug away and plug away, and all of a sudden they make adjustments on defense, and you're stalling out, and you can't get a push in the run game, and it's frustrating as all get out, right? And you look up, and they're up 14-10, you're like, how did this happen? A lot of Carolina teams through the years have lost games like that to the Wildcats, including in 2021, where Carolina certainly had their chances. But you get up off the mat, you put together a great drive. Spencer Rattler to Xavier Legette was the story of the evening. Completed a long third down, and then the last touchdown, and then the defense held on at the end. So, that's the type of game, for those that are discouraged now about the offense and the offense, I'm concerned about their ability to get a push in the run game and running the ball in general after these last 3 weeks. That said, Kentucky's done this to so many teams through the years, and they really wanted that. Well, you could tell Kentucky came in and played inspired, confident football. They did not think they were going to lose. I mean, last year in Lexington, Kentucky held that Georgia monstrosity to 16 points. So that's just kind of the way they play. South Carolina did a really, really good job, I think, of not letting the stagnation on offense get to the defense. Sometimes that happens. Defense will get frustrated, and your offense isn't moving it, and you get kind of demoralized, and you give up a cheap touchdown or something. Carolina did not relent, and they won the football game. I mean, that's the most important. After 10 years of extreme frustration against this group, it's good to see the Gamecocks come out on top and one that where they played they played the game Kentucky wanted to play instead of the game they wanted to play. But when you still come out and win in that situation, I think that's special.
JC, you just hit the nail on the head. Admittedly, watching that game, I thought to myself, this is the game that Kentucky wants to play. This plays right into Kentucky's hands, that hard-nosed, grinded-out type of football game, and the fact that South Carolina was able to hold on and sort of beat them at their own game, certainly impressive, like you mentioned, and certainly that home field atmosphere, that home game crowd, the all-black jerseys. Williams-Brice Stadium was in peak form on Saturday night. Let's move, though, JC, to the offensive side, because you mentioned some folks are discouraged. I find myself not as worried as maybe some others in regards to I think it's more of a one-off than the offense just forgot how to play. However, there are things that have to be corrected. What did you see from the offensive side? Because I thought yet again, JC, and it's really easy to sit here and play Monday morning quarterback and look back at the film and break everything down. But I admittedly thought there were some really questionable play calls, some questionable decisions, some questionable, you get a turnover and you're not exactly taking a shot or trying to make a big play or deliver a blow, a knockout punch. What were your thoughts on the offensive side? Do you have to just give more credit to Kentucky blowing it up front, or were there things South Carolina left out there?
It wasn't their day, and things got a little cattywampus, and I like that word, cattywampus. And this happens sometimes, right? When they put Lenoris in for that package, there was some discombobulation, it looked like, and Lenoris, to his credit, 2 carries, 9 yards. That's a good day at the office when you're just kind of going in there to doing it. And Kentucky kind of picked up on it, and then South Carolina just could not get a push in the run game, and that's the 3rd straight week. Really, we have not seen, we saw Mario break a long one, and we've seen him break some long ones. I think a 40-yarder against Jack State, 72 against Vandy. No long ones this one. And it's tough. Beamer said afterwards that Mario's a little banged up. Maybe he is. He's still running hard. Yeah, and then there's no depth there. I mean, DJ Braswell's having to go in and play, and what a good block on the touchdown pass by DJ. But I just say I think sometimes, when you're playing a defensive team that's very problematic like Kentucky is, and things start to not work, it snowballs a little bit on you. And it wasn't, I don't think anybody on offense thinks it was their best day. They just did enough to win the game, and that's positive. But yeah, I mean, I would not sit here and grade that side of the ball out at a B plus or A in it. They just, but it's a team ball game, and I think I think Kai Kroger had a good day punting too, quite frankly, and he's going to need this weekend. And it is a similar type of matchup. Kentucky is, I don't think Kentucky's as talented as Clemson, but it's that same type of, I don't want to call Clemson a spiderweb team because that sounds so weird, Chris, but in a lot of ways they are. And if they're not turning it over, they're hard to beat, because of the way they run the football and the way they play defense. So, they're going to need more points this weekend against the Tigers. And they're going to need to block better, obviously. And I think the Gamecocks got to win the turnover battle, but just like they did against Kentucky. But that's, you take that win against the Wildcats. Like I said, they were coming to town. And they were going to make it an ugly game, just like 2 years ago, just like 2017, just like 2015, when they won in Columbia. And the Gamecocks said, no, not today. So that's one you take, and you just next year you try to go blow them out.
JC, before we move into the rivalry stuff, Xavier Legette balls out yet again. And I mentioned, and I'm sure you guys mentioned it, that going in that game, it comes down to Spencer Rattler and Xavier Legette. Your best players have to make plays. They have to play well. That's no secret. When you look at his season, for you've watched a lot of Gamecocks football. You watched a lot of great Gamecocks wide receivers. Where do you put this season that Xavier Legette's having? Like, would you compare it to somebody else? I'm not really asking you to rank it, but like, where does your mind immediately go when you watch what Xavier Legette's doing on a week in, week out basis?
It's up there. It reminds me somewhat of Sidney Rice's 2005 season, Spurrier's first year, where it took the head ball coach, and I think Sidney was banged up, but it took him a couple of games. I think it was the Georgia game 2, where he was catching touchdowns and making acrobatic play. And then all of a sudden they figured it out quickly. And you saw what kind of season he had. I think he was National Freshman of the Year by Rivals.com that season. And obviously had a great 2-year career at Carolina. So as far as just the type of season he's having, it's like that. As far as who he is as a player, man, there just haven't been very many players that are that size and that fast at South Carolina. Jared Cook, but Jared was more of a split tight end. This guy, Xavier, he's probably not as good of a route runner elite-wise. And we had to have Pat DeMarco on earlier this week. And, I was asking, what's the difference between Julio Jones and Xavier Legette? Because I evaluated Julio as a high schooler and followed his career, obviously. And the difference is Julio is just an elite route runner, and Xavier's just not quite there yet. Now, he's run elite routes. That the route he ran on the first touchdown the other night was beautiful, along with the crosses and all that. But if there's any separation between the two, it's that at this same stage. So that dude's Julio Jones, basically, and fast. And Carolina just has not had that many receivers. I mean, usually there's been a lot of big receivers that come through here, Chris, but then they end up, they're not the fastest guys. Alshon had football speed, right? But in a race, Xavier would probably beat him. So I don't even know who to compare him to be honest, as far as that type of big freaky receiver that can run, the DK Metcalfs of the world, if you will. But his season reminds me of Rice's season, like I said, where going in, you didn't necessarily talk about him as being a guy that was going to blow up, and he did. And Carolina's fortunate to have him doing what he's doing. But and that was the same with Sidney that first year. So that's a season. And then player wise, heck, Julio Jones, DK Metcalf, those guys. Carolina hasn't had very many of those at all.
Yeah, JC, admittedly, my mind went straight to DK Metcalf. I was asked this a couple weeks ago, player comparison, and just that physicality, that size, that speed, those hands, to your point, I think Metcalf, it's a really good comparison, and it makes sense. South Carolina Clemson, JC. Need I say more? It is one of the best rivalries in all of college football. I'll ask you again before we get in the specifics of the game. You've been covering this thing for a very long time. Favorite memory and least favorite memory from the rivalry during your time, Gamecocks and Clemson?
Favorite memory, gosh, probably the 90 where the Gamecocks won, because I've had a lot of good memories where they've lost too, man. I mean, after the 99 game when Carolina, it was a noon kickoff. Carolina played its best game of the year, still lost by 10 on a late touchdown pass that sealed it for the Tigers, and that was the end of 0-11. But I had a blast the post game party out the tailgate because we were just all kind of relieved. But anyway, in 1994 was Brad Scott's first year. My buddy in high school, he's like the only Clemson fan. Believe it or not, I grew up in the upstate. I was not friends with very many Clemson people. Like, I don't know why. I don't know how that happened. My only Clemson friend I had, and we were supposed to go to the game the year before, and God, I guess his parents, he got in trouble with his parents or something, so we couldn't. So we went in 94 and had good seats right down near the field there at Memorial Stadium. And, Carolina's up 14-7, and Brandon Bennett throws the ball across the field to Reggie Richardson. He runs it all the way down, and Carolina proceeds to just whip them 33-7, which was unprecedented. And, as a younger kid and all that was Brad Scott's first year. So you think, man, the future's bright. It's about to turn around. And that was, that was something. Least favorite memory, I would say the push off up there, but that was such a great football game. It's hard to sit there but I'd say the fight year. That was just, that was just so disappointing because there was a lot of intensity. Carolina people were kind of sky high because Spurrier's coming, and Carolina's supposed to go to a bowl that year. So there were rumors Spurrier's going to come in and coach the bowl, and everybody's like sky high. And, Carolina just was not focused that day. Clemson was not a very good football team. And they just beat the tar out of the Gamecocks, and Savell Newton spent the whole day on his back. It was awful. And then what happened at the end was just very, very disheartening. As a native of the state of South Carolina, just had a bad taste in my mouth after that one, just because of what happened. Now, other than that, it's a pretty good day. Me and my buddy at the Bilo in Clemson bought a parking pass right behind where the West Zone is now for like $20. So we parked right there, and it was a pretty good day. Chugged a few beers, ate a sandwich. It was a nice day. Walked away from that just kind of disgusted by the whole state of things. And then as things happened, Chris, when Spurrier took over, and some of these guys that were the ringleaders of that ended up getting thrown off the team. I was, it was concerning about the character of some of the players at Carolina at that point.
So, JC, as we turn our attention to Saturday's game, Clemson enters this one. Obviously a disappointing season of their own, but the Gamecocks and Tigers have each won 3 games in a row entering this football game, so it's not a Kentucky situation where they've lost 4 of the last 5 and just got blown out. You look at Clemson offensively, Cade Klubnik at the quarterback position. Again, a bit of a rough start. This Garrett Riley offense, he's come on of late, but it's all about the rushing attack, right? Will Shipley, Phil Maffa. It's a lot like Kentucky where, again, they want to win with run game. Cade Klubnik just do enough and don't lose the football game for them. They've had trouble with turnovers, JC. They turn it over in every single game this year. They fumble the ball a lot. South Carolina, we've seen in recent weeks, has gone to this 3-3-5 scheme. What do you expect from South Carolina defensively? How do you expect them to attack Clemson? I mean, again, it sounds no-brainer that you got to slow down the running game. Much easier said than done. But again, this isn't a Clemson offense. It's lighting up scoreboards by any means.
No, but it is a Clemson offense. It's a different type of attack than maybe Kentucky or Vandy, where they're kind of bunched in a little bit, a lot more kind of pro-style stuff with those two offenses. This is a spread. They're going to spread you out. Garrett Riley, all that. South Carolina has not stopped Will Shipley in the entire 127 years he's been at Clemson. It's been only 2 games, but 2021, 2022, you could make the argument that they just turned and given it to Shipley. Maybe Carolina doesn't stop them all that much in the second half. Maffa's a load. Arguably, I think he's been better than Shipley this year. But they do put the ball on the ground. They do throw interceptions. I think that's the key. I think you got to stop the run first. But you also have to be aware of some of the stuff they do in the flat, Chris. They're really good at attacking the flat. And Carolina has had trouble this year tackling out there. It's been better the last couple of weeks, so it's got to be on point Saturday. Bearing Stool, I think, is a soul crusher on 3rd and 5 to 6. You got a favorable down the distance, and he's come the big 6'7" guy comes right across the formation, right across the middle, and boom, he's right at the sticks. It's a first down. Clemson is a frustrating team to have to play against this year if you're not on top, if you're playing from behind. And another thing Carolina can't do that North Carolina did last week, you can't give them the ball. You've got to take advantage of your scoring opportunities. I mean, my goodness, North Carolina could have been up 21-0 in that game. And, you get up that much, you have to wonder if Clemson has the firepower to come back, other than just, because they're really a ball control play defense. The good South Carolina is coming along right now because I think if you're leaky on that side of the ball, their defense is so good that if they're scoring points, it's going to be a tough day at the office. But if you're holding them down, forcing punts, getting turnovers and all that, it could probably end up being another game similar to Kentucky, in all honesty, if it ends up playing out like that. But Carolina's got to find a way to slow Will Shipley and Phil Maffa, obviously, force turnovers and don't turn it over yourself. And when you got the opportunity, if you get a turnover deep, put it in the end zone. You can't settle for field goals and then or God forbid, be down there like North Carolina and not punch it in or not get any points.
And JC, South Carolina's defense will need to be good yet again because Clemson, you can almost count on their defense is going to show up, one of the best in college football, allowing just under 300 yards per game of total offense. Their opponents, 288.6, including 166 yards per game through the air. They have a pair of elite linebackers in Jeremiah Trotter and Barrett Carter. They've got a fantastic defensive line. The matchup that's being talked about, JC, it seems all week, is Xavier Legette against Nate Wiggins on the outside. They're fantastic corner. How does South Carolina have success against this Clemson defense? Because, again, as you mentioned, JC, I mean, the Gamecocks, let's call it what it is, they have not been able to run the football this year outside of some big Mario Anderson runs. And running for 50 yards against the Kentucky defensive front, it doesn't exactly make you feel all warm and fuzzy and optimistic that the Gamecocks are going to generate some elite running game on Saturday. So how do they overcome that? I mean, I feel like we were having similar conversations going into last year's Clemson game, and South Carolina won anyway on the back of a great Spencer Rattler performance. Will it take that type of game yet again to lead the game to a productive offensive day?
Spencer in the passing game are going to have to carry the offense. You just go out there and throw everyone down because they're going to pin their ears back and come after you. But Brent Venables to Wes Godwin up there, it's the same scheme. And if there's one thing about that scheme, they will give you opportunities downfield. If you I don't say guess right, but call it right, you can have some times where you've really got some good opportunities. So the key is, you've got to get it off. Spencer's got to have time. I like it when they move the pocket a little bit and get him out on the edge. You see what's open. I do think Wiggins versus Legette is a great one-on-one matchup. I think the rest of their secondary is probably better than it was last year. But South Carolina's got some weapons too. Guys like Josh Simon and Trey Knox and Anderson out of the backfield, and Amarian Brown, Omega Blake, Nick Harbor. Those guys got to make plays too, because if I'm Clemson, I am 17 is in my crosshairs. Maybe you're not as worried about everybody else. So those guys got to make plays, and if they're open, I'm sure Spencer will find them and all that. I think Rattler's probably going to run the ball a little bit too. Drake May had some success running it, and really North Carolina, Amari and Hampton had some really big runs in that game. It just wasn't wasn't consistent enough, and then they had the problems inside the one twice. But So who knows? Maybe this is a one where you catch him blitzing or whatever. Mario Anderson breaks a couple of tackles and he's off to the races. Who knows? But I do think that Spencer's going to have a good game. The passing game in general is going to have to carry it. I don't see South Carolina winning if they go through a stretch like they did against Kentucky, where they, can't get out of their own way and are going 3-and-out over and over. I think that plays right into the type of team Clemson is this year, which is kind of a, hey, if we got you down, it's going to be hard to come back on us.
JC, Beamer ball was such a large part of that win last year. I really feel like that's where Kai Kroger set some of these, dare I say, sort of unrealistic expectations for this season, and why I don't think there's anybody been more scrutinized than Kai Kroger this year. I mean, even more than Spencer Rattler or any player on this team. Do you feel like special teams can play that kind of role again? Is that something you can go into this game depending on, banking on? Do you just hope that it works out in your favor? I mean, what role does special teams play in this football game?
But to a certain extent, I think Kai needs to have. Kai had a pretty good game against Kentucky. He averaged 44 yards a kick and really did a good job on a lot of attempts. I think, as far as the 2 field goal kickers, South Carolina has got a tremendous advantage in that department. Clemson, they kind of they had to call somebody back to the team to kick for them, this year. So it's been an adventure in that department for the Tigers, which if you're holding them to field goal attempts, I think you're doing good on defense. And Mitch Jeter's, been pretty good this year, obviously really good. So that's an advantage for the Gamecocks. As far as the return game goes, kickoff return, Jeter kicks it in the end zone most of the time. You do have to tackle. Their punt returner is a little tricky. He's if you don't kick it right, and he has a chance to wiggle in there, he can get some yards. But you'd hope Kai Kroger has a big game. I think going into the game, Clemson's got a really good punter, just like Carolina. I'd say even with a slight advantage to South Carolina in all the special teams areas on Saturday night. Certainly, you'd like to win that battle head to head. It's just such an advantage if you can get a pop off a return, or you can block a kick, or they're missing field goals. I mean, it's usually a positive when that happens. Plus, the vertical, to quote Will Muschamp, he always said the vertical field position. The vertical field position is going to be key in this ball game, just because Clemson's not a big strike team. They're a take it and march. And statistically, the longer they have to march, the better their chances of fizzling out. And so you kind of want to win that field position battle Saturday night.
JC, nobody's going to throw a parade or say that a 6-6 season was wildly successful and met all the preseason hype and expectations. But if the Gamecocks are able to take care of Clemson, make it 2 in a row in the rivalry, Shane Beamer have a 2-1 record against Clemson and Dabo Swinney, and the Gamecocks do win their 4th consecutive and make a bowl game, how significant, how big will that be just in the scope of the 2023 season?
It's big, Chris, because look, this team, people like to say injuries are an excuse. And if you've been there 6 years and you're supposed to have depth and you're supposed to have all this talent and you've recruited well, I don't even know at that point that 12 guys going down on the offensive line is going to be ideal. I mean, I don't think Alabama can survive that, or Georgia, but I think, sometimes that gets to be an excuse. When you're hurt, well, next man up, you've had ample time to build a roster where there's depth. Although South Carolina's really never had depth, but that's a different point. It's year 3. Year 3 is usually, at the very least, you're thin at spots, and South Carolina was. The defensive issues they had this year were not a function of injury. But you also have a schedule that really, Chris, it's almost the opposite of Kentucky. Kentucky got off to that big start and they were ranked and all that because, they played Akron and Eastern Kentucky and Youngstown, whoever the hell else. I mean, they played 3 cupcakes every year. And they were the first 3 games. It was a Big Ten type schedule for them. Carolina did not have that luxury, starting with the North Carolina game. Your road games, Tennessee, A&M, and Georgia, 3 places you rarely can win, or it's tough to win, anybody to win. And then Missouri, nobody saw them coming as a top 10 football team. And I think we all know by now they're legit. The Florida game's the one that hurts because that should have been a win. No questions asked. You got to hold on in that situation. But, other than that, I think if you look back on this season, there have been the only other 2 seasons where injuries have decimated one side of the ball, like they have at Carolina. 2018 on defense. Now, Carolina did make a bowl that year because the offense was really good. And then 1999, and Carolina lost every single game. So, I think you just take it. I think the Clemson game is huge for this university and this fan base and the players and everybody involved, top to bottom. Clemson is a big game, and it always will be. And so if you can go get another one of those, it takes the sting out of the season quite a bit. I mean, it's I remember 2009 was a promising season because you had the win over Ole Miss, and then played Florida tough. That great Florida team came in here with the I guess the Wounded Warriors uniform day, but it was not going to be cool if the Gamecocks went 6-6 and lost to Clemson. Well, then they went out and beat them 34-17. And next thing you know, there's 25,000 Gamecocks going to the Frozen Pizza Bowl. That wasn't a good game, obviously, but that was a disaster. But look at the enthusiasm based on winning that game. Same thing happened last year after beating Clemson and getting the Gator Bowl. And it just always helps when you win that one at the end. And I'm sure Clemson's thinking the same thing. They don't like losing to South Carolina up there. And getting that team, Dabo getting that team to 8-4, and you beat the Gamecocks on their home field again. Things are going to be feeling hunky dory. They're going to be talking national championships again up in Clemson. But it would mean this game always means everything. But this year even more because you do get into that bowl. Probably there's not. I mean, even at 6-6, you probably avoid. If you win this, you probably avoid Birmingham or the Gasparilla. You're probably going to Liberty Bowl, which is not good for me because I have a rehearsal dinner at 5:00 that day, and it starts at 2. So I may miss the. Anyway, they'll have a TV on there. But anyway, that's it's a Liberty Bowl against somebody like West Virginia. Heck, that'd be awesome. Play West Virginia in the Liberty Bowl with this team. And so I think that it is big. Now you lose it. Maybe you still go to a bowl because there's still that possibility. Maybe you don't. You lose it, it's going to be an interesting offseason. I don't think it's going to be hopeless, but I think it's going to be an interesting offseason as far as the direction you go in a number of areas. And then, how do you get ready for the next year? And I think those questions are going to be there regardless. But, long story short, I mean, everybody should know. You win this one, everything else is a distant memory,
Certainly those issues will be amplified depending on the results of Saturday.
Yeah, I don't
the grind for the Gasparilla may turn for the grind for the Liberty Bowl, which any bowl game at this point would be great.
Yeah.
Get to six wins and figure it out from there. JC Shurburtt of the Big Spur joins us every single week. JC, this was a blast, my friend. Again, let me wish you and yours happy Thanksgiving. And hopefully we are talking next week after a big South Carolina W.
Absolutely, my friend. You guys take care, and talk to you next week.
Okay, guys, that was our good friend JC Shurburtt of the Big Spur. Really good stuff as always. And again, appreciate him taking the time to chat with us, talking all things rivalry week. South Carolina Clemson, Saturday night, 7:30 kickoff on the SEC Network at Williams-Brice Stadium. Guys, that being said, we're going to jump into our first break of the day. On the other side, Juice Wells has announced his future plans. It's good news for Lenora Sellers and Gamecocks football. I'll give my full reaction to wide receiver 1 coming back in 2024. Guys, all that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. 2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Tuesday, November the 21st, 2023. Appreciate you all tuning in, guys, this Tuesday of Rivalry Week. I want to say thank you yet again to our good friend JC Shurburtt for taking the time to chat, talk all things Gamecocks and Tigers, as well as, of course, the big news that's dropped over the last 24 hours or so, which we are about to dive into. Let me say, guys, let me just remind you really quickly, no TDC Thursday or Friday. Of course, as you know, Thursday is Thanksgiving Day. And then Friday, I will be tied up with more Thanksgiving festivities. We've got different family coming in town, all that good stuff. Going to be a lot of fun. So, guys, today and tomorrow, right? We already got Monday out of the way. Today and tomorrow, we're rocking on TDC noon to 2. We're getting it all in, talking South Carolina Clemson, about to move into that conversation. Really exciting stuff. Also, guys, taking your questions, comments, and your voicemails at the end of today and tomorrow's show. So be sure to get your questions in at 843-790-3377. You never know, too. We may do something like an Instagram Live or something like that later in the week on Friday. Also, guys, I'm jumping on so many interviews, having so many great conversations. It's truly content bleeding out of the eyeballs. And again, guys, I appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in and showing love and support. Guys, that being said, the big news that dropped last night, really out of nowhere, Juice Wells goes on social media and clears the air, right? There's been a lot of chatter, a lot of discussion about what's going on with Juice Wells. Is he hurt? Is he getting ready for the NFL draft? Is he coming back next year? What's going on? How much of a role does NIL play in this? Well, Juice Wells said, you know what? I'm going to let everybody know. It's going to come straight from the horse's mouth what's going on. Juice Wells posting this on X, clearing the air. I'm not playing and not holding out for the NFL draft. I'll be back next year. ... Juice Wells officially announcing that he will return for the 2024 season. What's so funny, though, guys, that post gets published, and we still have questions. We still were like looking at that. Okay, does I'm not playing mean he's not playing in the game on Saturday? Does it mean like he's not playing, like he's not joking, right? What his status for Saturday is, I still think remains somewhat of a mystery. However, the bigger takeaway is the fact that Juice Wells will be returning to South Carolina next year. And what a massive boost for Gamecocks football going into year 4 of the Shane Beamer era. I think also, too, guys, a massive boost for this program going into the most important offseason of the Shane Beamer era in regards to building the roster through the transfer portal, continuing to build the program overall, right? There's going to be some serious expectations next year. Folks are going to want to see forward progression and see this program take a next step in Shane Beamer's 4th season. Great place to start with the return of wide receiver 1 guys who we're still going to be talking about next year, going into next year, as he should be one of the best wide receivers in the SEC, right? Do not forget so quickly what Juice Wells did last season, especially end of season, what he did in limited time against Georgia this year. 1 series, and you saw him make an impact. Thank goodness Xavier Legette stepped up, obviously, and filled the void, filled the absence of Juice Wells. But, I mean, this is massive news, man. You talk about South Carolina offensively. And, guys, I could argue that nobody on that roster and nobody affiliated with the Gamecocks is happier for this news than Lenoris Sellers, South Carolina quarterback, and I think the guy we all expect to be the next guy for South Carolina next season. And you start thinking about the offense and what it looks like in 2024. You can really let your imagination run wild and get really, really excited at the thought of it, right? You first think of the offensive line. I mean, that's the big thing. They've got to get solved. They've got to get shored up. They've got to get corrected. But you've got a lot of young talent that's going to be coming back. We're hearing rumors also that maybe Vershawn Lee is going to return. Jalen Nichols potentially going to return. So they're going to have some returners. You continue to build the Great Wall of Carolina. If you can get solid, just decent blocking on the offensive line, we all know how Gamecock fans feel about Lenoris Sellers, right? Like, this dude is the next greatest everything. You bring back Juice Wells now, because that was going to be a huge question mark going into next season, right? Like, who's wide receiver 1? You were bringing back Nick Harbor. You knew that he had all the talent in the world, but, I mean, we're talking about a guy that's going to finish the season, what, guys, like 15 catches, 20 catches maybe? That was going to be a huge question. Like, is he ready to be the number one wide receiver in this offense and carry the load and fill the shoes of the departed Xavier Legette when that happens next year? Now you got Juice Wells. Then you got a returning Nick Carver. Then you got a Mazeo Bennett coming in as a true freshman who folks are really high on. Then you got a Tyshawn Russell who's flashed this year. Then you got a potential like a Bakari Swain, right? You've got some young guys. Then whoever you pick up in the transfer portal if you do get a wide receiver or two. You think about what the Gamecocks have done at the tight end position. Like, it's very, very fun to think about. And, I mean, effectively, guys, we've mentioned a lot. Hey, South Carolina, they got to crush the transfer portal. This transfer portal cycle, it's so important for Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks going into 2024, which, again, we all know is going to be a pivotal year. I could argue the pickup of Juice Wells, the retention of Juice Wells is probably bigger than any pickup you'll have in the portal this cycle. Like, when you think of the significance, the type of player he is, the impact he has, what he can do for your offense, you need as many big-time playmakers as you can get your hands on. And so to have Juice Wells back in 2024, I also think, guys, just for a Gamecocks fan base, as we sit here looking ahead of the rivalry game on Saturday, and certainly the result of that game is nobody's going to throw a parade either way if you win and go 6-6. But as J.C. Shurburtt said, it's going to take a lot of sting out of the season if you beat Clemson, win 4 in a row to close it out and go 6-6. But win or lose on Saturday, this is a huge shot in the arm and a huge boost for a Gamecocks fan base that in this season where you sit 5-6 and not a whole lot has gone well, and 2023 had such high expectations and such high hopes, this all of a sudden gives you a lot to look forward to, even more so going into 2024. So it's an unfortunate situation that Juice Wells did not get to play this year, right? It's an unfortunate situation that he had that foot injury that lingered all season long. But what a huge boost it turns out to be for year 4 of the Shane Beamer era. And again, nobody's happier than Lenoris Sellers right now. Because Lenoris Sellers, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. A lot's going to be asked of him. But now you've got your wide receiver one. That's one less thing that you got to worry about. You've got a big-time, legitimate dude that you can go downfield to, throw the football up. You feel confident he's going to come down with it. He's going to make big plays for you. A quarterback's best friend, 2 things, a great running game, but also a great wide receiver that can make them look good a time or two. And Juice Wells is that guy. Huge boost for the Gamecocks offense, the Gamecocks football team in 2024, as South Carolina will enter, no matter what happens on Saturday, will enter a pivotal year 4 of the Shane Beamer era. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, who has the advantage at each position unit between the Gamecocks and Tigers? And although South Carolina won last year, Clemson's had a down year. Is Clemson still the vastly superior team when it comes to talent? We'll talk all that and more, guys, on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie, ho, Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Tuesday, November the 21st, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. I see our resident Vol fans are in here. I wonder when the Clemson Tiger fans are going to start chiming in. If they do. They may not. They may be having PTSD from last year and don't want any part of me, but or any of us in here, by the way. But yeah, I see our resident Vol fan in here. Sieber, what's up, man? John Edward, of course, is giving you the business, as we would all as we would all imagine he would do. Anyways, guys, appreciate you all. I see you guys conversating, going back and forth. Really, really good, man. It's a lot of fun. Truly appreciate y'all. The beauty is in the banter, as I like to say. And certainly that is true yet again on this rivalry week. Imagine, by the way, side note, imagine being a Tennessee fan and your rival is Vanderbilt. Although I say that, and Vandy has given Tennessee some damn headaches over the last decade or so, but Vols are a 27-point favorite, and I don't think that's going to be enough. I think Tennessee crushes Vandy in that football game. Guys, that being said, again, sticking with rivalry week. And I don't think this is a hot take. As we get into our position unit comparison, Clemson is a more talented football team than South Carolina. Clemson was a more talented football team than South Carolina last year. Did that make any difference? No. Could you necessarily tell on the field of play last year? Not really. Certainly not in the final score, but I don't think it's a hot take to say that Clemson still is the more talented of the two teams. But where? And just how much of an advantage do they have, guys? Our position unit comparison, where I'll break down every single position unit and who's got the advantage, or maybe it's a push between the Gamecocks and Tigers. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. We start at the quarterback position, guys. This one goes to South Carolina. That's the easy nod. Give credit to Cade Klubnik, taking over as QB1 full-time this year under a new offensive system that Garrett Riley brought over to Clemson. He's gotten better as the season has progressed. 2,480 passing yards, 64% completion percentage, 19 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He's been sacked 19 times as well. So, you look at their numbers, you look at those numbers, and they're not terrible, but early on, it was a struggle, right? And when you got a guy in Cade Klubnik that's talking about, you're on the road at Miami in an overtime game and the play call is to hand the ball at the middle and you just take off and do your own thing, there's been a disconnect there. I'll be really curious to see does Clemson go in the portal and try to get a quarterback this offseason, truly. But Cade Klubnik has come on of late. He hasn't been terrible. He's been respectable, right? Similar to who South Carolina just saw in Devin Leary last week. But he's not on the level of Spencer Rattler. And I know Rattler did not have his greatest game last week, but still, guys, threw a pair of touchdown passes, no turnovers, no interceptions, used his legs, was efficient with the football. Rattler is on a different level. And so, guys, it's been a long time since we could say this. For the second consecutive season, the Gamecocks have the edge at the quarterback position. Been a long time since we could say that in the South Carolina-Clemson rivalry. To the running back position we go. Clemson gets the nod here. The two-headed monster that is Phil Maffa and Will Shipley. Maffa with 805 rushing yards, 5.4 yards per carry, 9 rushing touchdowns to his credit. And Will Shipley, who has torn up South Carolina in his career, 718 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, 5.1 yards per carry, guys. They've combined for over 1,500 rushing yards and 14 total touchdowns this season. All respect to Mario Anderson. It ain't better than the two-headed monster that Clemson's got. South Carolina's lack of depth as well really even hurts them having a chance in this conversation. But I don't think there's any level-headed Gamecock fan out there that would argue this one. The Tigers certainly have the advantage in the backfield. At the wide receiver position, again, guys, this is another situation where South Carolina's got one guy. It's Xavier Legette, right? I mean, he is elite, but they have one guy. To be fair, you saw Morgan Brown do some things last weekend. You saw Nick Harbor get involved. I mean, outside of that, though, guys, there's not a whole lot there, and it's all spearheaded by Xavier Legette. On the Clemson side, they don't have that one elite guy, but they've got multiple dudes who contribute at a respectable level, right? Bo Collins, their leading wide receiver, 510 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns on the year. Tyler Brown behind him, 479 yards and 4 touchdowns. Their third leading receiver is a tight end, which we'll get into in just a second. Troy Stellato, 279 yards, receiving a touchdown. After that, Will Shipley is one of their leading receivers, 203 yards and 2 touchdowns. How about Antonio Williams, the local kid, just 17 catches for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns to his credit. They expect him to be the number 1 receiver, and I think he's dealt with some injuries here and there, but certainly just has not been the guy they expected. Guys, I do give South Carolina the nod at the wide receiver position because, again, while Clemson's got probably more guys that have respectable numbers or have contributed, like, there's something to be said for having a Xavier Legette. There's something to be said for having one of the best players on the field for both respective teams. Like, Xavier Legette's going to be one of the best football players that takes the field on Saturday. You have a guy like that, it gives you the nod, and for that reason, I give the Gamecocks the nod at the wide receiver position. At tight end, guys, this is a push for me. And a lot of South Carolina fans will say, well, we have 2 and they have 1. Why would it be a push? Guys, I challenge you to go look at the numbers that Jake Brenningstool has put up for Clemson at the tight end position. He's their third leading receiver. 40 catches for 404 yards, 10.1 yards per catch, and 5 touchdowns. Now, I know South Carolina has Trey Knox and Joshua Simon. I get that. But, guys, you combine their numbers, and it's about what Brenningstool has done for Clemson. He is such a weapon in their offense. He's also come on really strong of late. I like the game of Joshua Simon. Trey Knox has been kind of battling some injury, hasn't really done a ton. I go push here. I was tempted to give Clemson the nod here, but you know what? I respect the games of Knox and Simon. A push is where I fall when it comes to the tight end position. To the offensive line we go. Guys, South Carolina has improved. I was going to say drastically, but to be honest with you guys, I mean, the offensive line last week against Kentucky, it was about what we've seen all year. I mean, it's improved, don't get me wrong, where it's not just a complete jailbreak, right? I thought the offensive line did a much better job in pass protection, and Spencer Rattler wasn't just completely running for his life, but still, guys, Rattler ran the ball 10 times. He was sacked twice. A lot of pressure being generated on Spencer Rattler. The running game non-existent. As much of a bright spot as Mario Anderson has been, the Gamecocks cannot run the football. They are one of the worst in the SEC at rushing the football. They're obviously one of the worst at protecting the quarterback. You look at Clemson's offensive line. I mean, they haven't been great necessarily, right? They haven't been great, but I mean, they got a pair of guys who are both near 1,000 yards, and they've only given up 19 sacks, which is a lot less than South Carolina's, 39 they've given up. So I do give Clemson the nod, guys, at offensive line. I mean, again, they've been far from perfect, but I challenge you also to go look at the recruiting profiles of the Clemson offensive linemen. Look at South Carolina's guys. There's just more talent there. They've got better bodies. They've got more physical bodies. I do give Clemson the easy nod at offensive line. To the defensive side of the football we go, guys. And Clemson, you look at the numbers, they are, for lack of a better way of putting it, elite on the defensive side. I've seen a lot of chatter this week about Clemson's no good on defense. Teams have been able to expose them downfield. I'm like, I don't see those numbers. Like, if I'm missing that, somebody can inform me, but I'm not seeing that. Clemson's defense allowing less than 300 yards per game. They're only allowing 166 yards per game through the air. But, guys, we start with the defensive line. So we go from offensive line to defensive line, looking at the defensive side of the football. And I do give Clemson the nod here. South Carolina's defensive line, to be fair, had, I would argue, their best performance. You probably put it right up there with the Georgia game. One of their best performances of the season against Kentucky. Jordan Strawn, the game of the year for him. He was active. He was all over the quarterback, made big plays, forced some big turnovers. TJ Sanders was in there making plays. Tonka Hemingway with some game-changing plays. So that was the type of performance South Carolina needed, and that's what they're going to need yet again in this football game. But, guys, I mean, you look at Clemson. They've got some big-time NFL dudes up front. Tyler Davis, Rook, Ororo. I think it's how you say his name. I'm probably butchering that. But those two dudes lead the way. Xavier Thomas on the outside. Justin Mascall on the other edge as well. Clemson is elite up front. They're not just one of the best defensive lines in the ACC. They're one of the best defensive lines in all of college football, and I do give the Tigers the nod at the defensive line position group. To linebacker we go. Clemson gets the nod yet again. And this one's not even debatable, guys. I mean, South Carolina, hey, listen, I respect Debo Williams. He's a leader. He's a guy that plays with a relentless motor. Like, he loves being a Gamecock, and he's a smart football player, and that's all fine and dandy. But Jeremiah Trotter and Barrett Carter, they are arguably the best linebacker duo in all of college football. And you look at the numbers, guys, that would back it up. Both of these guys leading Clemson in tackles. Trotter with 82 total tackles, 5.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles on the year as well. Barrett Carter with 54 total tackles. He's got 2 sacks on the year. Those guys have been elite. Those guys have been elite for them all season long, and it goes beyond them as well. But that's really where it starts, is Trotter and Barrett Carter. So again, guys, Clemson easily with the advantage at the linebacker spot. To the secondary we go in defensive backs. And South Carolina secondary, I think in that Kentucky game, I mean, one of the better performances of the season. Nick Emanwari looked like the freshman All-American and the guy that we thought was going to be an All-SEC caliber dude this season. You still saw some holes in the secondary from time to time, but nothing like we had seen before, right? They did a really good job of limiting Devin Leary, limiting that passing game. But guys, still, the numbers are what the numbers are. And you look at Clemson, and again, I don't really understand all of this chatter about how bad their secondary is. Like, I don't know what I'm missing here. I mean, they're allowing 166 yards per game through the air, guys. They did finish 76th in pass defense in 2022, but I mean, they are much, much better. They're led by guys such as Sheridan Jones. Nate Wiggins is a dude who's been talked about a lot this week for his matchup against Xavier Legette. Andrew Makuba, Jalen Phillips. They're really good in the secondary. I do give Clemson the nod when it comes to the secondary guys. I mean, for everything that South Carolina has done well over the last 2 weeks on defense, it comes against 2 offenses. Vandy, just throw that game away. And then Kentucky, who isn't exactly an elite passing attack, right? So, to be fair, when you look at the full body of work, there's not much of a discussion here. Clemson does get the nod in the secondary. We move to kicker and punter, guys. I give the Gamecocks the nod here. I mean, Clemson, it's been a mess at the kicker spot. Cost them a game this year because they didn't have a kicker, because Dabo Swinney, for some reason, just refuses to go in the transfer portal and get anybody worth a damn. For as much criticism, guys, as Kai Kroger has caught this year, he hasn't been that bad. It was this game last year, I think, that set very, very unrealistic expectations for him. When he was just an animal, right? In the punting game and the fake game and, what he did. But I think the Gamecocks have the advantage at punter. At best, it's a push, because I think Clemson's got a pretty good one too. Aiden Swanson, pretty solid at the punter spot. But Mitch Jeter is vastly superior to whoever Clemson's got kicking for him now. And so I do give the Gamecocks the nod when it comes to kicker and punter. We'll see if Beamer Ball plays a major role in this game for the second consecutive season. And guys, finally, we move to coaching. Last but not least, this one's a push for me. This is one that has, dare I say, ruffled the feathers of a lot of Clemson folks out there. And there's a lot of different factors that play into this, guys, when I give the nods here, especially when it comes to coaching. Because for me, like, resume and what you've done in your career, it matters. Like, that matters absolutely 110%. But when I look at Dabo Swinney and Shane Beamer, and I compare the two, and both have their shortcomings, right? I mean, both these coaches have caught hell this season, and I would say in a lot of cases, probably most cases, deservedly so. They are very similar to each other, guys. Let's call it for what it is. I mean, they're basically the same person to a degree. Like, not exactly, but like, their styles are identical. They're both CEO head coaches who talk to their fan base a lot, who say some pretty out there things in press conferences from time to time. And that's just how they operate, right? That's just how they operate. But these two coaches, of course, 1-1 against each other. And my reasoning for a push is this. I understand, guys, Dabo took Clemson to 6 straight college football playoffs. I understand Dabo's won ACC titles. I understand Dabo's won 2 national titles. I get that. But that feels like, admittedly, that was eons ago. Clemson has been in a downward slide since last year when the Gamecocks beat them. And so you look at this year specifically, guys. You look at this new age of college football. What has Dabo Swinney done since the transfer portal NIL became a thing? All Dabo Swinney has done has not embrace the portal, not embrace NIL, not go out and get the best players. And his own fan base has called him on it. So, I don't know why Clemson people are so up in arms about this. Dabo Swinney's got a better resume, no question. He's won national titles. He's done things that Shane Beamer may never do. But if we're looking at it honestly right now, who would you rather take to lead your program forward? Maybe Dabo Swinney gets Clemson back. I'm not saying it's out of the question, but at least with Shane Beamer, I know that he's embracing transfer portal. I know that he's going to go out and do his damnedest to get the best talent to come to South Carolina in that respect. And you have to do that. Guys, you either adapt or you die. If you don't recruit transfer portal and don't embrace it and you don't like players getting paid, guess what? Not everybody does like players getting paid. Newsflash. But if you don't embrace it, you're going to be left behind. You're going to be left behind. You look at the rest of the coaching staff. I'll get back into the Swinney Beamer thing in a second. But you look at the rest of the coaching staff. Garrett Riley and Dowell Loggins, admittedly, God, what a crazy offseason it was talking about those two guys. When you look at the body of work this year, who's been better? I mean, it's easy to stop and just say Dowell Loggins because of the season Spencer Rattler has had. I think both guys have been pretty similar. I just think the biggest difference is the expectations for both were much different. They were much different. Garrett Riley came in with a flashy resume. I mean, heck, Gamecock fans wanted him. Heck, I wanted him. Came in with that flashy resume and all the success he had previously in the Riley name. And the offense has sputtered. The offense hasn't been what folks expected. Meanwhile, Dowell Loggins, I think we could argue, has done more with less a lot of times, especially trying to work around an atrocious, for a lot of the season, offensive line, lack of running game, what have you. I think those guys are about equal, though, when you look at the output and how the seasons have gone. I just think I'll put it this way, guys. I just think it's too early to know in their tenures. It's too early to know who's going to be more successful at their respective school. Defensively, what is it? Wes Goodwin. Easy advantage at DC. We don't even know if Clayton White's the one calling the plays right now. Let's be honest. And then Pete Limbo is obviously head and shoulders above what Clemson has at special teams. So you factor all that in, then you go back to head coach. Dabo's got a great resume. He's won national titles. He's been to the college ball playoff. We're talking about right now. And I don't know how Clemson fans can tell me I'm off my rocker for labeling coaching as a push when Clemson fans have been calling for this man's job this year, some of them. The game's passed him by. He doesn't embrace the portal. He's this, he's that, which is exactly why this is a push. Because I can argue, guys, even this year, over the last couple years, Shane Beamer has done more with less. Shane Beamer doesn't even remotely have the team that Dabo Swinney has, and all he's done is underachieve. That's all he's done, is underachieve and not get with the times and not embrace the transfer portal. At least South Carolina fans can say, hey, our head guy does that. Both of them are wildly similar. Each have a 1-1 record against the other. You talk about coaching conversation, why it shouldn't be a push one way or the other. Saturday night will go a long way in moving that conversation to either the Garnet and Black or the orange and purple. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we're going to knock out our drive around the SEC, and I got game picks, previews, predictions for the entire SEC, and then we will get into your questions, your comments, and your voicemails here on this Tuesday. All that and more, guys, on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose, while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Tuesday, November the 21st, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, guys. With that being said, don't forget we got our daily mailbag segment upcoming into the show. We're going to go ahead and dive into our weekly drive around the SEC, Week 13, a.k.a. Rivalry Week. And this week, guys, is always a ton of fun, man. I mean, this is why we love college football, right? Because of the rivalries, the trash talk, the banter, the back and forth, the bragging rights, having to live with this thing for 365 days. And we got some great SEC rivalries upcoming this weekend, guys. Full preview prediction from yours truly. We will start in Starkville, Mississippi. The 13th ranked Ole Miss Rebels taking on the Mississippi State Bulldogs in the Egg Bowl, a 7:30 kick on ESPN. This game is Thanksgiving night, guys. This is one of the most underrated rivalries in college football because you talk about hatred and disdain for one another. Guys, just take a moment, take a few minutes. Go look up some highlights and go look up the history of Mississippi State and Ole Miss. This is hatred. This is like a nasty hatred, which makes for a great football game and a great rivalry. Obviously, guys, Mississippi State just trying to get this season over with, fire their head coach, Zach Arnett. State did get a nice win last week against Southern Miss. What does it really mean? Do they find something, some momentum, what have you? You're going to notice, too, on rivalry weekend, guys, the spreads in a lot of these games are much tighter than you would expect. I think it's just because you respect the fact that when two rivals meet each other, throw the record books out the window. Throw everything out the window. You never know what's going to happen. That being said, I think Ole Miss is the better team. I think Ole Miss has got a lot to play for. I think Ole Miss with Jackson Dart, that offensive attack, Quinshon Judkins, I think they'll get the W. I don't doubt that Mississippi State's going to come out with their hair on fire and play inspired and be ready to go. But Ole Miss, the better football team, they will battle the hostile venue, the hostile atmosphere in Starkville, the cowbells, what have you. Ole Miss gets the dub over Mississippi State. To the Friday game, 4 o'clock Eastern on CBS. Arkansas hosting the 9th-ranked Missouri Tigers. And again, guys, you talk about weird spreads. You think to yourself, man, Arkansas is terrible, what have you. Mizzou's only a touchdown favorite in this game. This is a scary game, honestly. And it's unfair that I'm saying that because we say that every week about Mizzou, and we don't give them probably the respect they deserve, although they almost lost that game to Florida last weekend. I think it's a great thing. I think the best thing that happened for Arkansas this week was the fact that Sam Pittman, it was announced that he will return next year. And so now there's this unified front where everybody in the locker room knows, the coaching staff knows, the fan base knows, okay, we're locked arm in arm. We're going to finish this thing out strong. And when you're in a position like Arkansas, I mean, listen, nothing could be better than spoiling your rival's season. That's exactly what Arkansas would do if they beat Mizzou. That being said, the guys, I got to go Mizzou in this game. I've doubted them so many times this year. I'm not going to do it again. I think Mizzou is for real. They're legit. I think they get to 10 wins, which is just incredible. Truly a testament to what Eli Drinkwitz has done this season. I'm going with the Missouri Tigers to take down Arkansas in this football game. Guys, we move to the Saturday slate. Louisville, the 10th-ranked Louisville Cardinal hosts the Kentucky Wildcats, a noon kick on ABC. Guys, I've been wrong about Kentucky since literally the summer, right? Kentucky's been a team that I was super high on. They underwhelmed. I was wrong on Devin Leary. I was wrong on this, wrong on that. Everything I could be wrong about on Big Blue Nation, I've been wrong about. And you know what? I figure why not? Let's just do it one more time. I'll just be wrong one more time because I'm taking Kentucky to get the upset over 10th-ranked Louisville. Why not? Roll the dice. I think Mark Stoops' team is going to rise from the dead. I think they're going to go into Louisville and pull the shocker. And guys, you got to predict an upset or two because this is rivalry weekend. There's going to be unexpected results. There's going to be things that happen that don't make sense. I think in Louisville, that's going to be a great example of that. I think Kentucky gets the W and salvages somewhat their season by taking down the Cardinal. Another noon game, guys, on ESPN. This game is a 11 a.m. local time kickoff down in Baton Rouge as the 15th ranked LSU Tigers take on Texas A&M. Again, another weird spread. A&M's only like a touchdown underdog, something like that. I'm going to go with LSU here. Jaden Daniels, I think, is going to continue to solidify why he should win the Heisman Trophy. I think I understand the spread, though, and I love the over in this game because LSU plays no defense. Texas A&M, I think going up against LSU's offense, is their front seven able to get home? If not, it's going to be a field day from Elite Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., and I think it will be. I think it'll be a field day for them. I love LSU in this ball game, though. This is a huge ball game for LSU, getting some revenge after last year, right, when they got shellacked in College Station. I think LSU will beat the head coachless Aggies to close out their regular season on a high note. To the Iron Bowl we go, guys. Jordan-Hare Stadium. This is a 3:30 kickoff on CBS. Auburn taking on the 8th-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. Bama is a 14.5-point favorite. What can you expect from Auburn after getting blown out by New Mexico State? Is it fair to expect them to keep this game competitive? Is it fair to expect them to make this a tough ball game for Alabama? I don't know. It's weird because a beatdown like that can really refocus a team. It can also crush a team. I'm taking Alabama to win straight up, guys, no question. But weird things happen at Jordan-Hare. Jordan-Hare's a weird place, man. Bama is vastly superior. Bama's the better football team. There is no doubt. There is no question. But with that being said, weird things happen at Jordan-Hare Stadium on the Plains. So I'm going with Bama. Will not surprise me at all if Auburn covers that spread. Hugh Freeze is going to have his team ready to go. They're going to be playing at a high level. What's the game plan for Bama with Jalen Milroe? Do they continue to run him effectively? Can Auburn get them out of their game plan and make him uncomfortable? I think it's going to be an entertaining Iron Bowl, but Alabama does win, sets up that big SEC championship showdown with the Georgia Bulldogs. Guys, another 3:30 kickoff on SEC Network. To Knoxville we go. The 18th-ranked Tennessee Volunteers host the Vanderbilt Commodores. Vandy just trying to get this nightmare season over with. Guys, Tennessee got trounced by Georgia last week. They got their brains beat in by Mizzou 2 weeks ago. The good news is the team they play this Saturday, Vanderbilt, is neither Georgia nor Mizzou. They are the Vanderbilt Commodores, who are not good and who have mailed it in on this season. I love Tennessee in this game. I love Tennessee big in this game. I've literally got the Vols minus 27 in this game. I think Tennessee rolls. I think they're going to take out a lot of frustration on Vanderbilt. I would not be surprised to see Vandy score 50-plus in this game. Like, we saw what South Carolina did to Vandy. Tennessee could easily do it. To Gainesville we go. The battle of the backups. Florida hosting the 4th-ranked Florida State Seminoles. It's a 7 o'clock kick on ESPN. Of course, guys, as we all know, unfortunately, Jordan Travis suffering that terrible injury in the last game. Graham Mertz going out with a collarbone injury against Missouri. So a pair of backup quarterbacks will duke it out. This is a big game for Florida, man. Even if they don't win, keeping this game close, competitive, respectable for Billy Napier and his future. And, there's already grumblings, and I don't think Billy Napier is going anywhere, and I think that'd be a silly decision. But Florida State goes out there and wins by 21 or 28 points with a backup quarterback. I wouldn't put anything past those folks in Gainesville. That being said, guys, I do think it's a close game, but I've got Florida State winning the football game. I've actually got Florida State covering 6.5. I think a lot of people are going to be selling their stock on FSU because Jordan Travis is out. And while that's a huge injury, and it's an unfortunate injury, this Florida State team is a lot more than just one guy, right? A lot more than just one very important guy, but they are much more than just one guy. I think they show that Saturday night in Gainesville. FSU gets the W by a touchdown or more. And finally, guys, because we're going to save South Carolina Clemson for tomorrow, finally, Georgia travels to Atlanta, not for the SEC championship, but to take on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, the Ramblin' Wreck, a 7:30 kick on ABC. It's kind of sad the state of affairs this rivalry is in. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but I think Georgia's won like 15 in a row or something crazy like that. I don't even know. But it's just a beat down every single year, it seems. Good old-fashioned, or what is it? Good, clean, old-fashioned hate is the nickname of this rivalry. And it's hard to hate a team that you beat every single year in and year out. That's what Georgia does. Could Georgia Tech make this game a little bit squirrely? I mean, maybe so. I mean, the Georgia Tech's not a terrible team this year, right? Haynes King's been really good at quarterback. They've looked good at times. They look not so good at times. Georgia's going to win the football game. The question is just by how much. Is it a name your score game? Maybe that's a little aggressive, but Bobby Dodd Stadium more than likely is going to be painted red and black. And I think Georgia, this game is nothing more than a nice tune-up for them before the SEC championship against Alabama. Guys, that being said, we're going to jump into one final break. On the other side, we'll close out the show with your questions, your comments, and your voicemails here on this Tuesday in our daily mailbag segment. All that and more on the other side. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home. Call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent you.
That's your Dougie Ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Tuesday, November the 21st, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, guys. About 20 minutes left to go. That being said, we're going to spend that entire time taking your questions, your comments, your voicemails here in our daily mailbag segment. We do this every single day at the end of our show, guys. Do not forget, no show Thursday or Friday because of Thanksgiving holiday, Thanksgiving festivities, what have you. So tomorrow will be our final show of the week. I'll be breaking down, giving a full preview of South Carolina Clemson. I'll be locking in my score prediction. Going to be a really, really fun day. And guys, we'll spend a lot of time in that final hour taking your questions, your comments, and your voicemails. So again, looking forward to that. I appreciate each and every single one of you guys. That being said, let's go ahead and get into your questions. Peyton Smith, kick us off, says, which uniform combo would you most like to see on Saturday? All black for a second week in a row. I think that'd be awesome. I think Big Game Garnet would be good. Black Garnet, which is Shane Beamer's version of Big Game Garnet. I'd also like white Garnet, but I don't know. I'd say all black. Why not? I'd say all black. Let's see. We got a lot of trash talk in the in the comments. Having to kind of sift through. Madison Duncan, I want to go bowling. Indeed. Any bowl game would be great. Lucas Green says, to play devil's advocate, Juice said he's coming back next season. He did not say specifically he was coming back to play for South Carolina. Just a thought. Lucas, I don't know that I would read that far into it. I would be stunned if he meant that he wasn't coming back to South Carolina. I'd be stunned. Let's see. D.D. Short says, Juice is a known you can build around that on offense for 2024. For sure. He's a huge piece. Guys, again, in case you missed it, you want to leave your voicemails, you can call us 843-790-3377. You can also text that number if you'd like. Great way to get your questions in on the show. Great way to get your questions in. Guys, we've only had one voicemail all week, and it came from Tiger Anthony. So you tell me what's going on. What's going on? Clemson fans, the only one who wants to call in. Crazy. Okay. Billy Cotton, all black with white helmets is what he wants to go with. Travis Allen says, I hate it, but with our O-line and their defense, I think we get hammered 38-13. And they run for over 200 yards. Wow. Travis Allen says the confidence level is low. The confidence level's low. Cameron Blassingame says, popped up on my memories a post from the TSUS show from 2021. Dabo Sweeney, Beanie Weenie, yellow polka dot, bikini don't matter, Cox by 90. Yeah, that was a funny one. I think he's got the Beamer Ball hat on in that too. I think he's got the Beamer Ball hat on in that. Jonathan Hall with a couple questions says, Chris, are you finally going to the game? What's going to happen with the Clemson and Carolina baseball neutral site going forward? What uni combo you want? Who's your least favorite Clemson player? Jonathan Hall, am I going to the game? The answer is no. In case you missed it, which you probably have because you've been following Clemson all season. You haven't been following us. I have not been to a single game this season. We have been committed to the post-game call-in shows. I've been covering all the games from inside the studio going live immediately following each and every single game. And I'll do the same on Saturday night. Do not forget, guys, the post-game call-in show immediately following South Carolina and Clemson. It'll probably start around 11. But again, whenever the game ends, we will go live right here, YouTube, X, and Facebook. And I'd imagine that one, win or lose, is going to be electric. So, Jonathan Hall, you can tune into that. But no, I will not be at the game on Saturday. I look forward to returning to Willie B next season. But over the summer, man, just made the decision. I wanted to lock in and focus on the content this season. And it's been a great decision. It's been a great decision, honestly, man. I've thoroughly enjoyed covering the games from home, having my laptop in front of me, being an internet, what have you. And then the post-game call-in shows have been a massive, massive success for us this season. What's going to happen with the Clemson-Carolina baseball neutral site? I don't know. That's a great question. Do they go back and forth between Floor Field and Seagra? Do they go to a different venue? I genuinely don't know. Unicombo I want, like I said, I'd go all black. Why not? Who's your least favorite Clemson player? We'll stick with football because, of course, it's the week of the football game. It's got to be Ben Boulware, dude. It has to be. Well, if it's not Ben Boulware, it's probably Charlie Whitehurst because he tormented my childhood. That was my introduction, by the way. My introduction to the South Carolina Clemson rivalry was 2003. Okay. That was my first game. Diehard Gamecock fan, made a bet with my middle school teacher, was looking forward to the game. Carolina got dragged, you might recall, 63-17. I showed up at school. That Monday. I was forced, because I lost the bet, I was forced to wear a paper chain that was orange and purple, and it had a picture printed out of the scoreboard at the bottom, 63-17. So, you know, it's funny when people say, Chris, you grew up a Clemson fan. You're a Clemson fan. I'm sitting here in my head like, man, I did not sit through 63-17 to hear this nonsense, but it is what it is, man. It is what it is. But yeah, Charlie Whitehurst tormented my childhood, no doubt. Jonathan Hall, who's your favorite or Clemson's player you respect? You know, I've met Taj Boyd in person, so he's a really cool dude. Taj, a really cool dude. Respect Taj Boyd. Great player for Clemson. If I had to go somebody else, you know who I'll say, Jonathan Hall? Here's a name for you. I'm going to go Reggie Merriweather. You know why? Because he played at North Augusta, my alma mater. So shout out to Reggie Merriweather, man. He also tormented South Carolina, but not quite at the level Charlie did, because South Carolina beat Reggie Merriweather in 2006. And if Tommy Bowden would have just given him the ball, Clemson probably wins the game. So anyways, keeping it moving here. Billy Cotton says, we don't care if we win or lose. It's always a party. Don't let your kids be a Gamecock fan. Warning, they'll become alcoholics by 18. Billy Cotton, who was the guy that pushed off in 2000? That was Rod Gardner. Robbie Davis texts in, what's up, Chris? I have just two questions for you. Back when we went on that 5-game winning streak against Clemson Sucks, which one of those games was your favorite? Go Gamecocks, your friend Robbie Davis. It has to be 2013 because I was there in person. That was electric, man. That was electric. Yeah, I was there in person. That was a great time. Incredible. I mean, I left that game in 2013 truly, genuinely feeling like South Carolina would never lose to Clemson again. Like, it was just one of those, like, this rivalry, I think, is very streaky because it's mental, right? It's mental. Like, once you get in the head of the opponent, in the head of the rival, it's different. And that's sort of, it's kind of a shame, guys. This is Thanksgiving week because there's so many pieces of content and so many subject matters. I'll talk about a lot of these tomorrow that I've saved. But the interesting thing about this showdown Saturday, even looking back at last year, but certainly before that in years past, Clemson had this mental edge, I believe, on South Carolina, to where there was this intimidation factor, right? Like Clemson came in, it was like, oh, look at the big bad Tigers. They made all these college ball playoffs, these national titles, and that just added to the challenge. That was pulling the upset and beating a vastly superior, more talented team. I don't feel like Clemson has that edge anymore. Like, I don't feel like Gamecock fans, Gamecock fans for the last couple of years, especially during that losing streak, looked at Clemson, dare I say, with fear. Like, God, they're so good. Like, it's just, you had to tip your cap. You had to give respect. You had to acknowledge what was going on, right? Do you guys feel like that fear is still there? I don't think that fear is there anymore. And I think that really started when Spencer Rattler came to South Carolina. It's like, okay, now the Gamecocks have got a dude who can go toe-to-toe with these guys. And it also goes hand in hand with Clemson's struggles. And you look at Clemson this year, and it's like, nobody's scared of Clemson. Nobody's scared of what Clemson, nobody on the South Carolina side is scared of what Clemson is bringing to Columbia. I mean, I think in 2021, the last time the Tigers came to Willie B, and I mean, they were just a much better football team. I mean, you look at that team, and it was a situation in which it just felt like this crazy uphill climb, and it was just going to be so unlikely if South Carolina were to win that game. I don't get that vibe this year. The mental side of things is so big in a rivalry, and Clemson had that mental edge for so long. That intimidation factor had really set in. I don't think South Carolina is intimidated by Clemson anymore. I really don't. I think there's a respect, no doubt, but I don't sense that. I don't sense, like, South Carolina, win, lose, or draw on Saturday, I don't think there's this like, oh, man, here comes big bad Clemson. It's like, bring on Clemson. And that goes from the head coach and Shane Beamer, the players, the staff, the program as a whole, the fan base. I don't think Clemson has that mental edge anymore. Does that mean that Carolina's going to win Saturday? I have no idea. But I don't think that's a part of this rivalry right now, which is good, which is honestly good, because what you have right now are a pair of fan bases. Let's call it for what it is. A pair of fan bases that are both on edge. Both fan bases are on edge right now. This is the first time in a really long time, because every other year, South Carolina, it was just about, oh, they're playing the spoiler. Try to be the spoiler. Try to ruin Clemson's playoff hopes. Like, every single year. This is the first year in quite some time where you look at this game and you say, for the winner, it's a bright spot on an otherwise lackluster season. And for the loser, pain, turmoil, and just disgust over what the season was, and the question marks will immediately start to surface in regards to what has to change, what has to happen. I mean, guys, both of these coaches, I think whoever loses this football game, I'm not saying either of these coaches are on the hot seat, but whoever loses this game has got a little bit of extra pressure going into 2024. Would you disagree? I mean, I'm not saying anybody's getting run off. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying that South Carolina loses. And I mean, here's what happens. You beat Clemson. The season happened, but those losses to A&M and Georgia and Tennessee, they're all distant memory, right? If you beat Clemson, win 4 in a row to close out the year. Like, nobody, it's like, oh, that's behind us. We're not talking about that anymore, right? You lose to Clemson, and all of those things that happened, all those losses, it all comes to the forefront. It all comes to the forefront. And again, I see 8JM2 saying, yeah, that's nonsense. Dabo isn't on the hot seat. Coach Beamer will be, though. I'm not even saying hot seat, 8J. I'm not saying hot seat. I'm just saying for the loser, there's going to be an immense amount of pressure and unsettled an unsettled nature in their fan base, their respective fan base. You're telling me that if Dabo Swinney goes out there and loses to South Carolina for a second year in a row, after the season that Clemson's had, you're telling me that Dabo Swinney's seat won't start to warm up a little, that he won't start to feel a lot of pressure? Come on, man. I mean, Clemson fans are going to be irate if that happens. Clemson fans are going to be irate. So there's a lot of pressure on both sides. There's a lot of pressure on both sides. It's what makes, though, a great rivalry. It's what makes a great rivalry. And Willie B will be a madhouse, no doubt. I mean, the atmosphere will be incredible, just like it was for the Kentucky game. So Robbie Davis texting in yet again. What's up, Chris? This is my second question. When it comes to Thanksgiving, what's your favorite part of the meal? Mine personally is the dressing or stuffing, whichever one you want to call it. My favorite part of Thanksgiving, I'm going to, maybe Robbie, I'm going to go a little bit corny on you, but my favorite part of Thanksgiving is just being around family, being around people you love and you care about, and a chance to come together, see people maybe you haven't seen in a while. Yeah, that's my favorite part. That's my favorite part. I mean, the food's good. Obviously, man, I love the food. Mac and cheese is phenomenal. I mean, the food's great. The food's great, but coming around with great people, man, that's what really makes it. That's what really makes it. So that's what really makes it. Anyways, guys, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. Madison Duncan is Rattler staying and moving on. I saw Rattler's comments. I think he just accepted an invite to the Senior Bowl. Spencer Rattler's gone, man. Spencer Rattler's not coming back. I know, we like to have fun, play with the hypotheticals. Dude, he's done everything he's needed to do to have a great season and to put himself in a position to be drafted in a really, really nice spot. There's no way he doesn't take advantage of that. There's no way. Absolutely no way. So, and I think Shane Beamer would probably tell him to do that too. I think Shane Beamer would say, hey, man, appreciate you. Go get yours. Go get yours. Justin Martin, Chris, do you like smoked turkey? Yeah, I like turkey a lot. Bruce, any noteworthy quotes from Beamer so far today? I have not looked, Bruce. Have not looked yet. 8JM2 says, if we can't beat this Clemson team, we shouldn't have fired Muschamp. Interesting take there. Justin Martin, Chris, would you like to live in Florida? I like Florida a lot. Would I want to live there? I don't know. It would depend on what part. Guys, we have hit 2 o'clock. That's going to do it for me. I appreciate you all tuning in, guys. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, be sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we go live and we drop new video content as well. Also, guys, the podcast drops every single day at the Spurs Up Show on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to check us out there. And guys, stay tuned to social media. Content bleeding out of the eyeballs there. Guys, appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. Y'all have a great rest of your Tuesday. And we will talk to you all tomorrow.